day or he honey wash day. Depends on where you are and on this planet. Good morning. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross and I am live from Porcupine, South Dakota along the Porcupine Creek where the porcupines roam. I'm always very sad when I say that I don't have a porcupine tree, like where the porcupine trees are or whatever, something. So again, we have Chaz. Yay.
Thank
I
you,
love that
everyone.
Chaz comes and visits with us all the time. All the time. It's good. We get a lot of
Yeah.
I get a lot of feedback or comments or whatever. People text me or whatever, tell me that they really enjoy Chaz coming on and Chaz's point of view, all of that stuff. So good morning, Chaz.
Well, that's good to hear because I never hear from no one. I think a lot of times people are always like, "What the heck did she even say?" So I'm always don't ever say anything to me afterward. But that's good. It's been a busy week for us as Lakotas. I think there's a lot going on, and then also every week with the Trump administration is like a year. It's like every day something new. But I thought we should definitely talk about Law. That's a victory that happened this weekend or this week and that's a good thing. I told you that I was pretty vocally on Facebook against it, against the action that they did by putting the youth out there in front, because it really triggered me and it had a lot of Standing Rock flashbacks and like, oh my God, like I just can't see us ever being able to survive another encampment with the way that the police are so violent now, with ICE. Like I just was so triggered. But the injunction was happened, and the public pressure made Pete Lien step away from the operation, as he should. Um, Ironically enough, I met Pete Lien once. My dad was he was trying to do something. My dad was kind of a business guy, so he did was dealing with a lot of banks and stuff. And one time he was in Rapid City, and he was doing something, and I don't know what I was doing. I popped in, and he said, "Yeah, this is Pete Lien with Pete Lien and Sons, and go ahead, speak French," he said, because that's what I was learning French at the time. So I said hello to the guy in French and I walked away. That was pretty much my own experience with him. I don't know what Dad ever did with him, but he was also the big supporter of that Liberty Land, which was, just a crazy idea. And he's a prominent Catholic in Rapid City. And I think that, for a lot of reasons, it was a really bad idea for him to be fighting the whole Lakota Nation. So I'm glad that he pulled his permits, and I'm glad that the public pressure worked. And because what I mentioned before, I'm a big critic of the Indian environmental community because that's where I came from. That's how I started. I started out with the Sierra Club, and I've been at the front line of multiple different front lines and multiple different things, and they're really like unsafe places, and there's usually unsafe people in with those Indian environmental orgs, and there's no accountability for that. And in some ways I think and I've been thinking about this a lot, that white supremacy and the patriarchy are cults, right? They're cults. Like, if you think like that, if you think like that white people are in higher, there's a hierarchy and they're at the top, which a lot of people do, and a lot of our own people do. And I think that that's something that we have to acknowledge, that I was here and we were talking about taking Dewey County, which is in Timber Lake, which is an hour from Eagle Butte, where mostly non-Indians live, talking about taking our county seat. And a Lakota who was older said we couldn't manage our own county courthouse. And I said, what do you mean? Of course we could manage our own courthouse. But a lot of people of a certain generation, and I'm not going to say boomers, but yes, baby boomers, even in the even in the Lakota community, I think are very sort of traumatized about, because they went through boarding school. I understand like that inherent like, place, but like, I didn't go through boarding school. And so I think there's a lot of us, haven't gone through it. And so a lot of us do not, succumb, we're not cult members, right? We're not capitalists. We're not Washichus, and we're not a part of the patriarchy. And so that's, why we still exist as grassroots people. But a lot of people and a lot of our leaders think like Washichus. And I think that one of the things that triggered me was this week they came out with the big press release saying it was the youth who were doing it. And then I was like, well, what the heck? Why are the youth doing it? Why aren't white people doing it? That was my first thing. White people should be taking any kind of, damage from the state, right? If there's white people available, we should definitely have them out there. In Minneapolis, white people are literally are dying for people of color, right? They're dying for people of color. That's where we're at right now. We're not at a place where we're like, gonna put our youth in the front. So anyway, and I think that it was too professional. Like if it was from the youth, then how did it go out to every single media organization in the country? Like our youth are brilliant, but they're not that savvy. And plus, they were driving an ORV out in the Black Hills. Like, I mean, come on. Like there's like obvious professional environmental support behind that. And they're using youth.
And I think that's right. Like, that this is what they do to me, this is how I feel is you have all these billionaire people, all these millionaires, whatever, and they fund us to fight each other. And so for a big part of that, like I believe in action, I believe in advocacy, and I believe in activism. And I believe in direct action. I believe, all of those things. However, I struggle with it because it becomes a fundraising mechanism. It isn't something that we are saying, like that, like we are not, we're sacrificing our youth for this. We're going to give them a record. It's kind of like that whole mentality of the mob, the gangsters, all of that, where they teach the minors, the juveniles, to go and break the law because then it's not, you can get it expunged from your record when you get older.
That was one of the big things too. It's like, why would we even be wanting our youth to be getting? We are already the majority of the prisons. Like, so what was the thinking behind that? Like, I mean, you know what it was? It was an environmental tactic saying, oh, Standing Rock won because the youth led us, and we need to do that as well. But the thing about that is that, that guy, there was that New York Times or what was the Rolling Stone article about the Standing Rock that happened. I told that reporter that story at Standing Rock. Like, so he knew to tell the story of the youth convincing the people, because I told him that. Was that entirely true? No. There was a lot of the women, one of the reasons why I went up to Standing Rock was because when those women got arrested against those machines, remember, they were all just running up there and, it was all, there was a lot of different people and a lot of different reasons why Standing Rock happened. But because there was that really famous article, I don't know if you remember, but it was like right to start it all out. And the guy, I remember his name was Saul. He was a reporter. He wrote that really great thing saying the youth, went all the way to Washington, D.C. and kind of convinced the elders to follow them. Well, that wasn't exactly true. And so I think that, that's what environmental and nonprofit people do, is they sort of latch onto one thing. And it's not helpful, I don't think, because, if you're starting a race war in the Black Hills in the middle of, Trump America, I feel like that's a little sketchy. I feel like that could be a little, a little bit of Fed work too. Like who's advocating for that? Like, I just don't understand. Like, there's a fight to be had, and it's being had in ICE. On with ICE all over the country. A lot of blue cities are doing it. And if people want to go and fight the cops, they're welcome to it. They're doing it in Portland, they're doing it in Los Angeles, they're doing it in Minneapolis. And so I just don't feel like we are in any way capable of launching an attack. I mean, we have lots of disunity. I was, one of the critics. A lot of people were very critical of these tactics because guess what? The injunction then is what really made things happen. They could have just filed that in the first place. Why didn't they just, get all the tribes in line and do all that stuff in the first place? And then, it's like they move, and then everyone in our communities, oh, we've got to go fight. Got to, well, I was triggered because we got to go protect those kids. What the hell are those kids doing there? And then our IRA tribal leaders, they're all getting ready to fight and go and do another Standing Rock. And it just frustrates the heck out of me, Maggie, because we put our sewer water into the Missouri River here in Eagle Butte. We put our sewer water to the Missouri River. And we also allow pesticides, fertilizer and all that stuff, farmers, non-Indian farmers, pouring all that poison into our groundwater. So if we are like, if we're out there protecting the water at Peshla and then shitting in the Missouri River here in Eagle Butte, what are we saying? What are we doing? There's so many inconsistencies. And, I feel in a lot of ways those nonprofits aren't dealing with the actual problems. Our problem is poverty, right? I mean, our problem is that, part of our people, don't know where they're going to sleep tonight. And then part of our people are, posing for, these golden hour pictures in the World Wildlife Fund. I was also very triggered by something that came out from Heather Dawn Thompson, who's my tribe. She's working for the World Wildlife Fund and also working for the Joe Biden administration. So she's bragging about saving her grandma, helping to save the buffalo, and yet there's nothing about her about the Palestinian people. There's nothing about that. Like, what kind of Indians are we if that's not our priority? And I'm pretty frustrated with that because we have very elite Indians. Very elite Indians. They're right there in the tribal members from my res run the National Indian Gaming Association. They're all in there and in all of those big environmental, in DC making all these decisions. Also the guy, who worked for the USDA, the FSA here from my tribe, he had a quote in this article, in this environmental article, talking about how we can't let the sacredness of the buffalo get in the way of our economy. So, I was triggered by that too, because, are we Washijus now? And do we think about economies, or are we relatives, to each other? And are we trying to survive, as Lakotas, or are we just trying to be little Washijus, And I think a lot of us are little Washijus. So I mean, and people don't like me because I say that, but I don't care because we have to hold our own people accountable. And you know what? I've been to Heather Dawn's big ass house in Washington, D.C. And then I look at our people walk by on the street every day here. That's not fair. And if you think that you can go around representing Indigenous people without having our values, you're going to get a lot of pushback. So I guess get to be the pushback. But these things are like, I don't trust any political people who aren't saying, we need to be, advocating every day for the people in Palestine, the people in Lebanon now. I mean, there's all, and even Honduras. You know about what's going on down there. They're trying to take over Honduras, and they are destabilizing Mexico. And a CIA agent, a DEA agent was arrested. They're actively trying to destabilize Mexico and one of the other South American places down there, the CIA. And they're just letting them do it, right? Everyone's just letting them do it. We're just letting the Epstein class destroy the country. The Republicans here, John Thune
I saw this this on Substack. I saw this post, and this person says, we're on the street, we'll march against all of these different things. Like, we'll march against the genocide, we'll march against the economy, we'll march against all these things, but nobody has yet formulated a march for children against the Epstein class. Nobody has done that.
Yeah. Well, you know why, Maggie?
We're all, I know why, but that's just like they said that on Substack, and I'm like,
they're okay with it. They're okay with
people are okay with it. They even justify, like, so then I saw this stuff about, I've been really looking at watching the point of views in regards to where we are with the Middle East, where we are with the propaganda of hate speech against Islam, hate speech against Judaism, hate speech against Christianity, because it's really, the move is to kind of make this be a religious war. And so I'm just like kind of listening to all the different types of propaganda out there that are dealing with those things. And so you see where Judaism comes out with, the Judaism wants the Christians, Islam wants the Christians. So we're all making the fight for the Christians.
But it's all propaganda, right? Because it's not really about religion, and truly it's about land, right? And so,
yes.
and I was listening to a creator yesterday.
And resources.
Oil, right? And maybe the banks, and maybe about the banks. They want everything to be on the banks run by the banks that run us, right?
What is it? Digital currency, digital.
That's right.
Grid.
But I was listening to someone the other day who went into it, and I understood it so well for the first time. So there is no historical evidence of a Jewish diaspora from the Middle East. There is not, Maggie. There is, however, ample evidence that the folks who lived there, the ancient Judeans, were conquered by Islam and became Muslim. So what we have here now is people who became Jewish, white people who became Jewish in Europe, who suffered a Holocaust and is now putting that Holocaust back onto the ancient Judeans. White people doing it to the ancient Judeans. Like, it's totally crazy to me, like, that they don't even see it. And people don't see it. It's all about race, right? It's all about race and land, and they're all just making this say it's about religion so that they can fire up all these Christian evangelicals who are just racist, Meg. I mean, also what's happening down in the South, right? Down in Tennessee. Like, they are changing the maps, the voter registration maps. And because of that Supreme Court decision, what's coming out of there is Jim Crow too, and it's too much. Like there's an absolute race war. That's why I feel like the whole Pei Schla thing was like maybe a Fed thing, because like why do a fight now? Why they're fighting race down in the Southeast. They're fighting race all over. They're fighting race in the with the immigrants in the big cities. And now we're going to fight race in the Black Hills. That's why I think some of those guys are feds.
I
Does
think
that
also in it, like, what allows for people to mine in the Black Hills? What law?
the 1872 mine, that the law that still doesn't exist? We are running
So,
out of that
so
law.
how come we're not like collectively coming together to change that law? Instead, we allow that law to stay in existence, and then we're just fighting each other.
Yeah.
So Pete Lien is like in Rapid City, there, all of this stuff there you can see out there in Black Hawk, is it, where he's mining all the gravel. And so what used to be just kind of a little thing now is a great big old um dip in the earth. But so he's doing that. How come we're not being smart? Like, we're engaging at those lower levels, we're not engaging at that upper level. So how come we're not like sitting down and talking to legislatures and saying this isn't going to happen, or we strongly disagree with this, we want to more than consultation. Like, one, you're not consulting with us, and if you do consult with us, you just blow us off, and then you
Yeah.
just go on and do whatever it is you want to do. We want, you remember Mike Rounds, Senator Rounds went about and said that he was going to take all those ridiculous laws about Indian people off the books. So I challenged his office about the Major Crimes Act then.
Mm.
I asked him about IRA, take that off the books. I start asking about those ones that really do matter, where they're controlling and dictating our land. But why are they not doing that? Why aren't they over there saying, all of our leaders, treaty councils, all of them at that place saying, we need to talk about this law and we want this law removed? Because we have a Supreme Court ruling that says this is our land. You guys are still occupying our land. You guys are still doing those things, but whatever's gonna be the outcome of that, I don't know if we can make them all move, but we're saying we want this, no mining in the Black Hills.
Yeah.
We're not
Well,
making a concession, no mining.
I mean, I agree, but the reason why, it's because of the industries, right? They're so powerful on the state and federal level, and we are there's so much disunity in our communities. We are never able to come together. I do think that they do have some kind of with Indian Collective, some kind of tribal advisory thing, but I don't like that. I don't like that because now we're becoming foresters, right? So now we're taking resources. We actually have they have a contract to reduce, the trees out there. So we're foresters. We're now cutting down the Black Hills. Economic development, sure, but I mean, I don't agree with that kind of like, environmental stewardship. It is not environmental stewardship for us to engage in activities that are washichu, that are not washichu. Like, we don't, what are they even, cutting down those trees for? If they were cutting them down to bring them back to build us all houses, okay. But they're not doing that. They're just trying to, create revenue. They're all just thinking about revenue. I mean, the reason why we can't create any environmental unity, because that's because our tribes are run by folks who think like IRA Indians, right? They think like IRA Indians, like they want the power, they want the next election. They don't think about things like from a decolonized perspective. All these IRA leaders are just fighting for power, and leadership is a burden. When I had to do it in the Black Hills during that Rapid City community conversations, I was having panic attacks, right? It was like so hard to be able to, accurately, articulate the complicated, understandings of racial oppression, right? And to be able to do that and still stay mad and not be, upsetting to folks.
Mad.
Yeah. People don't understand the systematic stuff, and then we have our leaders up there who are making decisions who don't have any of that understanding, and so like And and mostly around here, what we do is we hire outside experts rather than talk to people who have been organizing in the Black Hills environmentally for 30 years. They're gonna hire outside experts and ask people to come on in and do the stuff. Like, it's just not, you have to build community. You have to build community. You have to build community. I was telling someone the other day that everyone thinks Standing Rock was such a big deal, but it was actually the no KXL pipeline effort that set the stage for Standing Rock to happen. And guess what? We won that pipeline. Like everyone always takes up so much air for the losers at DAPL when we actually beat the Keystone Pipeline. And we did it by creating a grassroots and an IRA coalition of people. And then we had the non-Indians, who helped us as well. So we had the Cowboy Indian Alliance. And that took a long time to build. We fought that Keystone Pipeline since 2008 is when it first popped up. And I started my page No KXL through Treaty Lands in 2012. So we were already 4 years into that fight by the time I even had that page. And so it took a long time to a lot of work to do that. So it takes a lot of organizing to get people to do what you want. It doesn't take a lot to pay people to go out and do some things. That's nothing. But if you want to build community, and it's almost impossible, I think, and I hate to be such a naysayer, but so many people are capitalists now. You can't trust people, and people aren't actually out for change and for the people. They're out for notoriety and cash. People, a lot of people do that, and our people are poor. So if you gotta do what you gotta do to feed your kids, I don't judge people for that. But if you're calling out for people to come and support the youth to fight the cops, I'm definitely going to have a conversation about that, because it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense at Standing Rock. It doesn't make sense at all. They have huge weapons and they like to hit us. Like, they don't like us. Like, I mean, they literally hate us. I mean, look what they're doing all over the country. And to ICE
Then
folks, we
you
are,
think you have to think about like where are like how to, so even in our Lakota culture, like the way we are, like that circle, the outside of that is the men, the women, the elderly, and the children.
that's right.
So when we're looking at and we're promoting the youth, and I know, granted, maybe some of those people are well over 18 that they're identifying as youth.
Yeah, no, they were 30, Maggie. That was another thing that I was like, what? Like
Mm-hmm.
We do not speak with forked tongues. We do not speak with, we are lying. We are not Lakota. So that is
Mm-hmm.
not the way we organize. And so, and guess what? If you wanted us all to support you, you should have put us all into the loop so we all knew. But no, we just see Lakota youth in danger, so we react. And that's what they wanted to happen. They got what they wanted to happen.
And I think the other thing about that is, like I'm really appreciative of the treaty councils and the councils that stood up, because they were immediately concerned about where this was going, and like we need to get there. And so where are those conversations? So what gives a nonprofit organization the authority to go and create the chaos that our tribes have to then fix or to settle down? So when we think about like fighting for things, doing that, then why are we not putting effort into one, like the mediation efforts, addressing, like picking out what are our concerns about it, where are we in that? But instead we went to the some of us are old now, right? It's like that whole generation of like when the 80s and 90s, all those people, 60s, 70s, when they came and rose through in leadership. And then they get there and then they're still out trying to, the good fight or whatever. But at the same time, it's like they're also saying, you guys need to do this now because we're this age. Like we'll support you, we'll listen, we'll try to figure out ways to help resolve things. But it's kind of just like this whole thing of like, I'm just gonna stir it up. And that is not safe because we're living in a very tense time. Like we have ICE already doing things and murdering people. We have all of this escalation. And so what we would want to be doing is not elevating or escalating. We would want to de-escalate, and we'd want to say, hey, let's have this conversation. So it was the tribal councils that had the conversation, filed in court with Pete Lien, and then got that kind of resolved. Granted, the other guys went and tied themselves down to equipment and everything and then put themselves in you're going to get felonies now.
Yeah, well, they should have gone to the tribes beforehand, said, let's all get on board. We're going to file the injunction. Let's do that. They could have had the rally outside of Pete Lien's thing. The tying down is really irresponsible. And it's very like, daddy's going to bail me out kind of. Like those, and how I think about like that, because I learned how to organize there in Rapid City. I used to go to this UU church, and there was a guy by the name of Tim Standing Soldier, and he was brilliant, and I just appreciated so much learning from him. He's in the spirit world now, but like he would totally just like rip into these liberal white people right in front of me, and it was just like I was just shaking sometimes when he would do it. But it was always about recognize who the poor people are here in this community, and you can have these liberal ideas of let's all treat each other individually well, but who's going to pay for that arrogance of the Indian collective, those humble people on the streets? Because those cops are going to take it out on them. The humble, you can't be starting a race war in a place where we're already 100% of the fucking jail. Oh, sorry, it's 100% of the jail. Like we can't start a race war when we're already under attack. It's like, it feels to me like, that's why I'm saying it's like maybe someone in that organization is working to create disunity, who works for the feds to create some kind of like, someone in that whole deciding, group, just really irresponsible, because, that kind of racial anger that comes down on our poor and our powerless on the streets, and who they're going to get it. And so I just feel like, folks need to be humble and not be like wanting to, just jump out there and start fighting, because we're going to lose. Hello. I mean, we don't have no guns. And you know what we could do, Maggie? We could take care of our own lands. We could be planting gardens. We could be planning for the fall. We could be getting back to the things that matter, and really just becoming good people instead of becoming better white people, like better liars. Like, is that our goal? Like, I mean, no, that's what they think it is. I think that's what those liberal Indians think that they are. We have to outdo that. I used to think that, Maggie. I used to think that. I did. But you know what happened? I prayed a lot. And guess what? We are already winning. We already won. We're still here. All we have to do is come back to thinking and acting and being Lakota, feeding our people, take care of our homeless people. We don't have to save the world. We already have 3 million acres here on Cheyenne River. You guys have how much down there, Rosebud, and, whatever, we could come together. We don't have to worry about, those guys. Sure, we want to protect the water out the Black Hills, but that's still our land, all that stuff. But we really need to be putting our young people to, making them, dead tired every day in the gardens. Get out there, do whatever, go get some turnips. It's that time. All of this stuff is like, we need to return to our first medicines and return to our first ways of living and our life ways. That's the solution to the climate problem. And if you're an environmental organization and you're saying, let's go fight the cops, rather than, let's rebuild our communities. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, it's a frustrating situation, right? It's we're in it right now. It's a race war. They are literally attacking people of the global majority in every way that they can. They feel like they're losing it. And folks who are not willing to acknowledge that are doing us a disservice. You're doing us a disservice, and folks need to, I think, we just need to concentrate on the res. I think, doing what we're doing, like, you guys at the school, it's like we are already, running our own civilizations. We just need to, get out of that cult where this is like a second, less than kind of environment here on the res. Sure, it's, they have homeless people and they have poverty everywhere. It's not just here on the res, but a lot of people on the res don't think that. I'm sure we're the poorest of the poor, but we're also super kind and super generous to each other, and we really take care of each other when we have to, and that's why we still exist. Our life ways are the solution to all of the problems. But
I think that there's this place too that we have to get move towards, is that we need to stop victimizing ourselves. That's something I've been thinking about too. And I'm a psychologist, so this is kind of a crazy thing that I was in the points of view out there searching and listening to different voices. I listened to the history of psychology, how that come to be, and then how psychology changed the mindset. So instead, we used to look at our behavior. So what are we doing? Why are we doing that? Kind of take ownership for those things. And then somehow that switched to, why did they do that to you? We switched it to that blame of like, this is what, so even though like those things are like, we live in trauma and we live through these things, but what it ended up doing was changing our mindset and creating this place of like, we are stuck and we become hopeless and all of these things because we're blaming somebody else for, like, nowhere are we saying it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to, yes, those lessons are yours, and to make the change or to learn from your lesson. Instead, we say, well, they did that because back here, this is what happened. And then that's just a systemic thing that rolled over and it builds up. And so this is the situation. And so then because of we're in this all talking about this trauma, which is true, we're experiencing these things, but it allows us to put the blame on the trauma. That what happened long time ago is still affecting me. But how does it affect me today? And then how do I learn from it? How do I heal? We're not getting to that place. We're just staying in it's better to blame somebody for the decisions that I've made. Like, I could tell you a whole bunch of messed up decisions that I've made in my life, but then I also, made some changes, changed direction in my life. I sobered up in 1999. One day I just went cold turkey, said, that's it, I'm done. About 2 months later, I quit chewing tobacco because I used to chew tobacco, and I had like these really bad sinus infections and stuff. And So I was just chew went up to like $3.75 a can, and I'm like, man, I'm wasting money buying this chew, and I can't even chew it because my sinus infection is so bad. And it was like 3 months I was stuck in this, took for my sinuses to clear up. And that was before I knew, like, just eat a whole bunch of hot stuff and that'll clear it out real quick.
Horseradish, yeah.
So that was before those days, but I quit. And so then I've never chewed tobacco again, and I've never drank a beer or anything again. And so when I look at those things, like, I can honestly tell you that once I did that, things changed in my life and the way I think about things. Like, I could hear my grandparents' voice. I could hear, these things to be better, to do better. A lot of people around me tell me, if it wasn't for your grandparents, I would have struggled in life, but they helped me. And so, like, being like that, like, really trying to be the kind person instead of the angry person that is still using substances. Like, I don't even agree with marijuana. I don't agree with the legalization of marijuana. Yeah, it is comes from the earth. Yeah, all of those things, but it also creates an addiction. I mean, because we can make those same arguments about you're putting all of the chemicals together. Those are all barley, hops, rye, all of those are natural ingredients. And so that make our alcohol, they make vodka out of the starch of the potato, all of those different things. So you could make the argument of what is natural, but like, I don't agree with the marijuana stuff. Like, go get a medical card or whatever. But at the same time, I think that if you don't really do and work on your own healing, your body can't heal. And so the things that I've learned since COVID is about taking care of my gut health, my liver, doing the things that are good for them so that I'm not sick. And so when I do those things, like, my autoimmune system calms down, my anxiety calms down, like, a lot of different things happen because I start taking care of myself. And so there's just kind of that thing in my mind. Like, I understand historical trauma. I understand all of those things. I understand life is hard. Reservation life is hard. Homeless life is hard. All life is hard. I understand, but I think there's got to come to a time when we start talking about it's okay to make a mistake so we can heal. Learn from your mistake. You're still a good person. You just need to learn from your mistake so you can use your mistake so that you can go forward.
But I think
I might be talking BS.
Well, no, but I think I agree with a lot of things that you said there. But I and I think we have to remember too that when we are traumatized, our brain stops evolving. We're stuck in that place unless we heal. So if we get traumatized, and trauma could be, a sexual assault, it could be a physical assault, it could be a emotional assault, it could be any kind of assault, or you could just even witness it. You don't even have to experience it. You could just witness it. Because if you see a traumatic event, it's like you experienced it in your brain. Like, if you watch stuff, and this is something that our people should be aware of, if you're watching all these scary movies and all that stuff, your brain is experiencing that trauma because that's how we're wired to experience that. Like, we mimic it. And the challenge is for us to be able to move out of that spot where our trauma came. And we don't have a lot of opportunity to do that, Maggie. I mean, you were able to get sober on your own, but a lot of people, can't get into treatment and can't get into anything. And really, because our people are so, worn down by the victimization, we are so rugged to each other. We're like, we just expect everyone's going to be able to, pull ourselves up from the bootstrap because we do it, But you do, so and we have those differences within our communities. As some people have 3 generations of people's never seen anyone go get a job. and then there's some of us who have like been working since we started, and I think that, there's so many different life experiences within our communities, that it's really hard for us all to find healing, and that's what we really need to do, because racism and sexism, which is rape culture, those are all happen to people who are who have brain damage. Like, this is not, I'm not even kidding you. They have tested it. People who are racist have lower, hippocampus or whatever it is. I don't know. You're a psychologist. Yeah, that they have low, they are not, they are damaged. They are brain damaged. And once I figured that out, I spent a lot less time in conversation with folks who can't even understand what I'm saying, let alone see from my perspective. And so when you're racist and you're sexist, you can't walk in someone else's shoes, and we're stuck in a place, in a situation where 50% of the United States, a lot of our people are, sixth grade literacy. And they're unable to find, or get the healing that they need. We don't have a treatment center here. We're building it, but we don't have one. And, so I'm not trying to defend our people and say, we are traumatized, but we literally
No, I
are.
understand that. And because I go there too. Like, I understand all of that stuff, but at the same time, it's like I still think we have to find a place where we're saying, it's okay to make a mistake. You're still a good person. We still love you. It's okay. Let's figure out how to go forward, because all learning comes from mistakes, all learning.
Yeah.
And so we've been conditioned to believe that mistakes are bad, that we are dumb, that we are all of these things. And so our school systems are set in that way, where they're on a deficit model. And so they look at your deficiencies and say, oh, this is what you didn't do, or this is, whatever. So we're going to hone in, is what they'll say. We're going to be laser focused. And then in that whole conversation, though, is they don't. So I used to say this when I was in K-12 education. Define, when you're saying laser focus, what does that mean? And so it means that you're going to focus in on something, and then you're going to try to make it, you're going to knock off the bad things of that. And so I said, so in essence, what you're doing is you're killing a part of me. You're telling me that part of me is not good. And so when you say laser focus, I'm offended, because I don't know what part of me you want to kill in my learning, in my life, in my whole being. And so, when I think about that, like in cancer treatment and stuff, where they would say they're going to use a laser, they're going to do these things while they're taking out the cancer. So what is it? And so non-Indian, white people, or maybe even Indians they're like, sometimes when I say those things, they don't, like, they look at me and they're like, you're too much. You're too much. Like, you take this little bitty thing, instead of just letting us move on and go do this, you're making a big old issue out of it. And it's just a little bitty thing, but you're making a big issue out of it. And so I always ask those questions, like, so when you want us to change, when you're asking those things, what are we transforming to? Is it transforming to be like you, or is it transforming to be Lakota? What are we doing?
That's right. Well, that's right. And that's essentially it too. And that's about the school systems too. They don't teach you to think at school. They teach you to pay, to listen and to do what you're told. They don't teach you how to think. They don't teach you how to challenge. Because if you're challenging a teacher, you're a problem. You're a problem teacher. You're a problem student. And so, authoritarian, I think schools teach people to go to jail and so much in this country. And I think that, people, I grew up, my dad was a very learned man. He would read a big book every week. I watched him, and we would talk about ideas and all of this stuff. And so I was, we were not the normal household. And that's problematic, because we should be able to, have conversations, should be able to challenge each other without it, turning into a battle royale. I was really very careful about sticking to my criticisms about structurally and things. I don't want to attack any of these people personally, because all of us are in different places in our journeys, and some of us have been able to I've spent many years of my life. I've been to treatment 6 times, inpatient treatment 3 times. It took a long time. So I've been working on getting sober for a long, long time. And I smoke weed because I'm ADHD and I'm whatever. It's medicine for me because it works for my brain. My brain is neurodivergent brain, so it thinks a little bit different. But I have a psychiatrist and I have a therapist and I have all these people who I talk about these things. It's not an addiction, because my addiction is primarily people. I would do whatever the heck everyone wanted me to do, so I would be happy and people would love me. I was a people pleaser. And so I think that there's a lot of ways that we have toxic behaviors in our communities that aren't necessarily all about addiction. A lot of us are very codependent, depending on, very authoritarian partners, and, the authoritarian, the violence that comes from Washichu ways. That's not a Lakota value. And a lot of times, I think some of that trauma, that fight that we want to fight the man, that comes from that trauma response, from them beating on us. And we are not them. Like, if we are trying to do them, better, that's not going to work. We're not going to do that. We're not cult members. We lead with the heart. We protect that land and the water because it's our relative. That's a part of us. We do that not because it's a resource that we need to guard. And so I think that a lot of people have to really, in this time and day, really decide, are we still in a place where we are in where we are moving forward? Are we in flux? Are we progressing as a people, as a tribal identity? And frankly, like, it hurts my feelings to see the way our culture is used, like, the youth out there in front of everything, and the fighting Indian and with the masks on and all that stuff. Like we are not all those people. We are elders. We are youth. We are women. We're not. I'm not going to fight the cops. I was at Sandy Rock that whole time. I never got anywhere near getting shot at. Because there was no need to. The violence that happened, with the dogs and all that stuff, once that all happened, things sort of got confined. And also, there was no need to, because there was non-Indians there to take it. We should always be having. We are already very few people, and we should have allies that want to support us, because this is it's a race war, and people don't understand that there's a lot of non-Indians that are not racists, and we have to be able to speak to them in a way that's inviting and not in a way that's combative, because we really, I think, probably do a disservice to environmental people, workers, organizers out there in the Black Hills area, when we're not saying, hey, let's work together and get this done, or we'll just put our youth out there and then we'll do it. You got to create coalitions. That's why Keystone won. I'm gonna back to that point. I just want to say is that we did a lot of grassroots tribal organizing and professional water people, all that stuff. You got to do that organizing in order for anything in Indian country to work. People got to understand things. Our chairman is busy with from 8 to 5 with all kinds of chaos, of crises, right? They've got all kinds of crises that they have to deal with, and they can't be also are visionaries for environmental planning. People need to be creating that kind of policy agenda, right? Like what is the policy agenda that all of us tribes can get behind it? Changing that mining law, great, let's do that. what are other things that we can all get aligned on? A lot of things. But the problem is, I think when folks speak for the people, that makes everyone mad. You got to be very careful when you're a communicator, I think, in Indian country, because I'm not going to be wanting to get arrested. I don't want to fight the cops. So, and I want total systems change. So, you got to be able to speak to a lot of different communities when you speak to Indian people, because we have various different understandings. You know what I mean? A lot of work. And I know we talked about all the bad stuff, but I think it's great that we stopped that mine. I think that Pete Lien, that's a good job, Pete. Good job. Like, that's great. There's also a lot of other, I think that there's another Dewey Burdock mine that's coming in, the uranium mine. They're working on that. That we have to mobilize for that too. The whole of the Black Hills is sacred. The Cave Hills is sacred. The Deer's Ears is sacred. The whole of the world is sacred. We can't be like pretending like it's not. And so we have to have a broader understanding of what work we're doing, right? What work are we willing to get beat up for? And who are the people that we're willing to get in line, in that line for, and what is the issue? Right now it's, with the way it's going now, our people just should just sit at home and put their gardens in. That's what I keep saying, because if you want to fight, go to one of the urban places, but we're already in the jails, right? Like what more can that?
What is it? 80% of Native Americans or something. What is it? 80 in Pennington County, anyways. We are like 80% of the prison or the jail population there.
And 65% of the 65% of the state women's prison are Native women. And they talk about how they like women, but they have a war. They want to protect women. They have a war on women and a war on people of color, and they're happening right now. The rape culture, and hopefully this is going to be the end of it. But I wish that more of our tribal leaders would make statements about the Epstein files. Like, why haven't the chairman said, hey, we need to freaking deal with this? Why haven't they sent John Thune a letter and said, why is it, we can see the Epstein, there's a whole museum in New York City now of the Epstein files that you can go and see. And we know that they're poisoning the food. You should only eat kosher foods. They have a U on it. Everyone should be looking on it. There's a U on it. That means it's kosher. Everything else is being poisoned because there's no protection from the FDA. Now we got the hantavirus that's coming. People are, hopefully we don't have another shutdown, but our IRA leaders, and we need to be taking care of our people and telling everyone to put their gardens in and stay home and don't be getting in trouble, because things are scary. And white people are angry. They literally shot 2 people in Minneapolis. I still can't even believe that even happened, and no one's been arrested for it or nothing.
No one's been arrested.
No one's been arrested. He's still working. That guy's still working. The guy who shot Renee Good is still working. And did our IRA tribes make a statement about any of that ICE stuff? I mean, ours did. Finally, when they started,
I think ours did. Because he went out there. And I don't know if I think Frank did. But of course I'm not on Facebook, so that's where everybody communicates, is on Facebook. So unless someone screenshots it to me, I don't know. No, I don't go there.
I'm not going there anymore either. So I just pop in every now and then and share a couple of things, and then throw some bombs and then leave, because I don't care. People lie, and so I don't want to spend my time listening to liars. If you guys are going to be just sitting there, waxing your own horn, what, do something that matters, and then I'll follow you. But a lot of those people are just tearing each other up and doing exactly what they want us to do, creating disunity and jealousy and bad blood. So
Chaz,
anyway, yeah.
we're up on our hour. And I want to thank you. I'm really, really glad that you come and you give us all this conversation, because I like to engage with people, and it's been I've been real busy, so it's hard for me to try to organize my calendar anymore for Toksa Hour. So I got to figure out that. But I'm really glad, and I'm glad that you're always willing to come on and have the conversation with us. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
To you.
I hope that you guys have a good day. Today it's a little bit different for me. My mom's not here, so I don't know how to celebrate it, even though I am a mother. It's just kind of like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But I also want to say congratulations to all the graduates. May is a very busy time for everybody, and I just want to say congratulations to everybody who are reaching their goals. And so we have a lot of people coming out in graduating high school. That's a big thing, to finish high school, and then going on to college and getting your certificates, whatever it is in your life. I want to say congratulations for your accomplishments, that you're there. And I want to give you encouragement to continue on.
And me too. I just want to say that I appreciate so much. We need to know what they think. We need to know what they think. And I also wanted to say that Mother's Day was started during and after I think the Prussian War, and the purpose of it was to have to create good feelings so that we could have brotherhood and deal with our international conflicts in a peaceful way. And so I think that it's a wonderful holiday, and it started from a place where about peace. And great that mothers, we should be working toward peace, and we should be having way more conversations about that, because it starts within, and then we can create it, right? So
Yeah.
thank you, Maggie.
Yep. All right, you guys have a